Then we went to Lakewood, and it was called Lake Stilichum. Mother had that down there. It was called Lake Stilichum, I believe. We moved to Lake Stilichum in 1918. And I and Julius and the family so enjoyed boating on the Pollywog, a houseboat built by Julius and father, and the summer place at Joe's Bay, near home. Now these are the organizations that she listed: St. Cecilia Club, Women's Chorus, American Association of University of Women, Tacoma Seroptimists, Ida Bailey Orthopedic Guild, Junior Todd Hallam Book Club, Lakewood Garden Club, Hat Club, charter member of Lakewood Artists, Tacoma Retired Teachers Association, Washington State Historical Society, Tacoma Knife and Fork Club, UPS Tacoma Symphony, ex-president of Pierce County School Directors Association, ex-president and life member, Washington State School Directors Association, member of Allied Committee of 16, honorary life member, Washington State School Director Association, Lakewood Artists. She was an artist also. And then she was on the school board from Park Lodge Elementary 1921 to 1928. Clover Park School District 1928 to 1947. I worked hard to get the 5 separate districts: Lakeview, Custer, Park Lodge, Lake City, American Lake South, to get together. 1923. Formed Union High School District number 204 in 1928. Built Clover Park Junior High School, opened in September 1928. And Consolidated District number 400, 1941. Now, this is her viewpoint about the schools. I had the belief that everyone should do some civic work to better his community. My friend, Mrs. Bosworth, I don't know, anybody know the Bosworths in this? You do. Who was director of Park Lodge District, said that she just couldn't do it anymore, and asked me to run for election, which was very soon. Well, I was elected. I think there were all 9 votes, but I got them all. Park Lodge was a 3-room school and getting crowded, but there were 3 exceptional teachers. Mrs. Emma Tripler, principal. Does anybody remember her?
Yes.
Her daughter, Marion Tripler, had the 3rd and 4th grades, while Helen Morris was the primary teacher. When students completed 8th grades, they had to take the streetcar, later the bus, into Jason Lee Junior High for 1 year, then to Stadium and Lincoln High. Our course of study did not correspond to Tacoma's with their exams, which decided their promotion. The 8th grade had to review everything to get ready for the state exams. But several Jason Lee teachers told me they could spot Park Lodge students because they were so well prepared in grammar and arithmetic due to our excellent teachers and the necessity of getting ready for the state exams. Seeing what our youngsters had to do to get into the city schools, early hours, and then the wait in the city bus depot after school, when there was invariably several unsavory men lounging around. And knowing that all 5 of our schools in this area were having the same problems, I decided we would have a Union High School out the Lakes District by joining together. Well, that was a problem. All 5 schools, American Lake, Lake City, Lakeview, and Custer, a 1-room school, were all jealous of each other. So the first thing to be done was to invite the teachers from the other schools, which she did. She asked Mrs. Tripler if she would have a tea party, which she did. And she brought her own new teapot and beautiful silver service. Of course, each school had to reciprocate, and they became quite friendly. Pretty clever. Next to tackle the school boards, but they were much easier. I just had to present the idea of consolidation, as they could see the benefits of getting together, pooling our funds and building a school in one district after the other. Then it was time to broach the idea of a consolidated high school, which appealed to all of them. Next, the community had to be educated, which was done by numerous meetings in each district. I remember she knocked on every door in the neighborhood. The ideas appealed to the county and state officials, so I had no trouble getting good speakers who easily became aware of our problems. But we discovered we would not have enough money to have a good high school. So we decided to settle for a junior high first and then a senior high later. But there was no law that would allow us to do that. So we started in on the legislature. There was no difficulty in getting the state superintendent of schools. I think that was Mrs. Monemaker.
Mrs. Bean.
And who was that?
Mrs. Bean.
Oh, Mrs. Bean.
I agree with that.
There was no difficulty in getting the state superintendent of schools and the governor to see our need.
You see, either that or show off.
Oh, yes, that's right. And solution, but the legislators could not see that. I was terribly discouraged, as it was certain to be voted down. But just before the vote, Governor Martin suddenly came down from his podium in front of the legislation body, grabbed me by the arm, and Governor Martin was a very tall man, and I had a terrible time keeping up to his strides. But we made it, and he addressed the legislatures and introduced me as the one person who could really answer any questions they had about the need for letting us have a junior high, and had gone through so many meetings where I had to have figures to show the need, that I could answer any of their questions. Well, it was noted that a rural district could have a junior high school, and then we were on our way. One of the biggest helps I had was from Charles Mann, no relative, who was editor of the Lakewood Log. You all remember the Lakewood Log? The first newspaper in the district. He was a very clever man and had innumerable questions about the need for such a thing. He surely could get at the root of any idea. But I had the answers ready, and he supported the idea, which was of great help, as his paper was delivered throughout the 5 districts. Well, when the election votes were counted, it was almost 90% favorable. So we were on our way, location first. The present site was nicely and unanimously approved. Then the name. I wanted to call it the Interlochen Junior High. But some of the well-to-do people comprising the Interlochen district objected, so that was chopped. I had refused to have the school named for me, as I said, no school should be named for a living person, as there was no assurance of how he or she might turn out. So I remembered Ira Davison. That was your relative, of course. And that was your grandfather, wasn't that right? When Father Davison had homesteaded this area, telling me that this area, when the creek would overflow, would that be Ponce de Leon Creek, I think, and keep the ground green with clover under the big fir trees. We're so delighted with the beautiful green spot after months of crossing the United States in covered wagons that they call the district Clover Park. So when the story was told, it was accepted as the name of the new school. I thought that was so fascinating to find that information. I was just thrilled to find that. Then I mentioned Mrs. Bosworth. This is a letter that her son wrote, and he passed away a while ago. But it is full of history. It's just great. Memories of Park Lodge School. I began first grade at Park Lodge in September 1914. It was one of the typical one-room schools with 2 or 3 adjacent service rooms and a wood-burning furnace that gobbled up 4-foot lengths of firewood. Our teacher was Mrs. Wilson, had all 8 grades in one room, which with about 35 to 38 pupils in grades 1 through 8. There were 2 to the first grade. In the first grade, Herbie Jones. Anybody know Herbie Jones?
Yeah, I know.
Who lived in Interlaken, and myself. After teaching the first grade, Mrs. Wilson would rotate to the second grade and on up to the 8th grade. Pupils not being taught at the time were expected to study or be quietly at rest. When our session was over, Herbie and I were permitted to go to the large open room next to the classroom. No windows or walls on 2 sides. Just a large screened-in playroom. Presumably some of the other lower grades were given similar permission, but my memory is weak on details of what happened. In about 1919, a large addition immediately to the right of the main entrance was constructed, and larger than the original building. A bell tower was added, and a second cupola to match the existing one. I didn't know there were 2 cupolas. Now what happened to the second one?
I don't know.
I know that he was very exact about what he knew, and I just wondered where that was. Anyway, close inspection of the exterior walls will show that the bricks are not as high as those in the original building. Where the bricks were manufactured was not clear to me at the time, but I do vividly recall that coming by railroad flat car to Lakeview, a major freight terminal at the time, bricks were loaded one by one onto horse-drawn wagons with wooden spoke wheels and steel rims. No rubber tires at that time. Layers of straw were placed between the bricks to prevent breakage or chipping during the 2 to 3 mile trip to the school site. Somehow I was permitted to ride one of the wagons between the freight yard and the job site. Maybe my job was to spread the straw. Possibly the driver must have thought the 10-year-old boy could not lift a heavy brick. The above incidents are just examples of what an elementary school pupil remembers during growing up years. I just thought that was a fascinating little story. I wanted to share that with you. Now this is a delightful conversation with Iva Alice Mann by Ross Hewlett. Anybody know Ross Hewlett?
Yes.
Sitting, that was with the Lakewood Journal, wasn't it? Was he with the Lakewood Journal or Lakewood? Which paper would it be?
Suburban Times, up your back.
Lakewood, it was the Lakewood Journal, let's see, Lakewood Log, then the Lakewood
Suburban Times.
Suburban Times, I bet you that was it, yeah. Sitting down and talking with Iva Alice Mann is much more than just a delightful conversation. There's also a lesson in history, political science, philosophy, and human relations. So when it comes to writing about Mrs. Mann, the problem is one of limitations. Writing a book would be easier because it would take a book to do her justice. Sitting in a sunny kitchen above alcove, we looked out on an abundance of roses and a large raspberry patch. Now well into her 80s, she had been up early and picked a flat of the berries. Her front door greeting, I don't know why I agreed to an interview. The last thing I want is an article about me in the paper.